So there are 9:31, so I think that we can start our event. And good morning, everybody, and good afternoon to our colleagues that are connecting from Thailand. Welcome to this very important webinar that we have organized in collaboration with the Thailand Board of Investments and in particular with the BOI office in Paris. Today we are going to speak about very important topics, in particular the energy transition and sustainability in Thailand, looking at the strategy, vision and investment that the country is planning in the next year, and also looking at what kind of opportunities may arise for Italian companies in terms of investment and also partnership with local companies. I just want to thank all the distinguished speakers that today are going to provide us with their thoughts and contribution about this topic. And I would also like to thank all the participants that are connecting and to listen our event today. I just want to remember that if you want to make question, you have the chat box in the right side of your screen, and so we can read it and make question to our speaker. So there are a lot of contributions today, so I don't want to waste your time anymore, and I immediately give the floor to Mrs. Cherdachan Anurat, Director of Thailand Board of Investment Paris Office.
His Excellency, Mr. Lorenzo Galanti, Ambassador of Italy to Thailand, Her Excellency Ms. Lomani Kananurak, Ambassador of Thailand to Italy, distinguished guest speaker, ladies and gentlemen, buongiorno and good morning. First of all, allow me to introduce myself. I am Cherdachan Arunrat, Director of BOI Paris. The BOI Paris is the Office of Thailand Board of Investment, which is responsible for giving support to the Italian companies. On behalf of Thailand Board of Investment, it is my great honor to give you a warm welcome to all of you who are attending today's webinar. This webinar is organized with the collaboration of the European House Ambassador. The theme of today is the energy transition and sustainability in Thailand. The opportunity for Italian company. The meeting of head of the state COP26 last year showed that reducing speedily the harmful effect of climate change is an emergency for all the nations. Climate change negatively impacts our living conditions, affecting the food we eat, the water we drink, the air we breathe, and weather we experience. That is why all of our action in favor of energy transition, whether public or private, collective or individual, make the difference. Even so, sustainable energy transition requires disruptive technology, effective public policy, and government investment support. Following the ambassador address, our guest speaker will elaborate on this issue. First, Mr. Masatoshi Sujura, head of the Asia Pacific and Partnership Division at the International Energy Agency, will give IEA's perspective of decarbonization in Southeast Asia and Thailand. The agency will also outline the technological solution needed to speed up energy transition in Thailand. Next, Mr. Vilapat Kiatphirngphu, Deputy Director General of the Energy Policy and Planning Office at the Ministry of Energy of Thailand, will introduce the policy of Thai government and role of international cooperation to boost energy transition and decarbonization in Thailand. Then Ms. Suvida Thanyawong, Senior Investment Promotion Officer at Thailand Board of Investment, will elaborate on the business opportunity and incentive programs implemented by Thai government to favor investment that facilitate the transition. Last, Mr. Alessandro Menotti, CEO of Danieli Thailand, will share Danieli's experience of doing business in Thailand. Finally, the webinar will end with a Q&A session. I hope that the valuable information that our distinguished guest speaker will give you will enable you to evaluate the business and investment opportunity that Thailand offers in energy transition sector. I leave now the floor to Ms. Ariana Landi, Professional International Practice at the European House Ambassador, to share this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chera Chan, for your vision and for the collaboration that we are carrying out since the last year. So we are very honored to work with you. I just want to give the floor to the ambassador, Lorenzo Galanti, Italian ambassador to Thailand, in order to provide us the introductory remarks and his vision about Italy-Thailand collaboration in energy transition. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ariana Landi. Your Excellency, Mrs. Romani Kananarak, Ambassador of Thailand to Italy, Mr. Virapat Kiakpwengfu, Deputy Director General, Mrs. Cherchan Arunrat, Director of Thailand Board of Investment Paris Office, speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the European House Ambrosetti and Mrs. Ariana Landi for inviting me to offer a few remarks at the outset of this very interesting and timely event on energy transition and sustainability in Thailand, opportunities for Italian companies. Let me give you very quickly a little bit of context of bilateral relations in the economic sphere. Our trade bounced back last year in 2021 to beat the record year of 2019. So it now tops the level of 3 billion euro. And in the first quarter of 2022, it further increased by 22%. Italy's exports increased by 18%, and Italy's imports from Thailand increased by 26%. So this year, at least at the outset of this year, the figures were quite positive. Investment flows are below potential. This is something that I have discussed also with the leadership of the Bureau of Investment here in Thailand. We have to work and focus on sectors and try to identify which sectors can be a priority to focus on. And I think that the energy sector is definitely one of those, particularly in the renewable sphere, one of those where we have to, let's say, do an extra effort to scout opportunities. So that's why I say that this event today is a very timely one. A few words more about the context. Italy is a development partner of ASEAN since 2020, and in this capacity, I think Italy is able to open new avenues for cooperation with ASEAN member states, and particularly Thailand, the second economy in ASEAN, in the field of climate change and energy. We also look with confidence at the improvement of EU-Thailand relations and the good prospects to the signature this year of the Comprehensive Partnership Agreement and possibly the resumption of the negotiations on a free trade agreement. Technical level contacts are taking place since a number of months, and so these technical level contacts are aimed to identify the so-called level of ambition on both sides before starting the negotiations on the free trade agreement. Now to our topic today. 2021 has been a year that was particularly important for Italy in terms of climate diplomacy, because Italy was co-chairing the COP26 in Glasgow with the UK. So we were particularly active all around the world in trying to, again, raise the level of ambition and of commitment of our partner governments. I must say that Thailand, during the summit in Glasgow, has made a surprise move and has announced that it will level up its mid and long-term targets on greenhouse gases emission reductions, saying it would accomplish the net zero emissions by 2050 if gaining support from the international community. This was a very important shift in the target with respect to the previous goal that had been announced of reaching net zero emissions by 2065. Of course, there is a strong emphasis on climate finance, and climate finance has been at the core of Italy's program as a chair of the G20 last year. So we look forward to continuing this discussion with Thailand on climate finance. Now, in Thailand's strategy to reach these ambitious targets, one important component is the strategy on electric vehicles. And there's an EV master plan which aims to increase electric vehicles production to 30% of the total annual car production by 2030, which means about 750,000 units out of roughly 2.5 million units, which is an interesting goal in terms of industry, in terms of the infrastructure that is needed to be developed. The automotive industry is one of Thailand's most important sectors, contributes to about 10% of the economy, and supports industries from iron and steel to petrochemicals, and about half of the cars made in Thailand are exported. Another topic that I would like to emphasize is the BCG model. That BCG is the acronym for Bio, Circular and Green. And this model has been conceptualized by the Thai government to underpin Thailand's 4.0 policy as a strategy to drive economic and social development. BCG is an integration of bioeconomy, circular economy, and green economy. It is at the core of Thailand's program for the APEC presidency this year. And I think it's a quite interesting model that or framework where many initiatives can be developed. Italy has been working with Thailand on this topic. We have organized a webinar on sustainable production and consumption, for example, with the ASEAN Center for Sustainable Development recently, and we also. And in that particular context, we highlighted some best practices by companies from Thailand and from Italy in this particular field, which relates to the SDG number 12. I think there is concrete interest for more collaboration in the field of renewables here in Thailand. If I may mention that in April, the entire board of directors of PTT visited Italy and visited Enel Green Power solar energy facilities in Catania, Sicily. So I do hope that opportunities for collaboration will arise from this visit. Actually, Italy's strategy in the recovery and resilience plan in the framework of the EU Next Gen has a key component, which is related to renewable energy, hydrogen, and sustainable mobility. And this component primarily deals with the production and distribution of energy, encouraging the use of renewable sources and providing the necessary infrastructure for their integration into the national electricity system and for powering electric vehicles. These actions founded by the National Recovery and Resilience Plan will contribute to the achievement of the European Union's objectives, and particularly to what we call the Fit for 55 package. In the meantime, the international situation is accelerating the need for a strategic autonomy on energy for all countries. So while we are currently experiencing the possibility, unfortunately, of a setback on certain objectives, and I'm referring, for example, to the use of coal for electricity generation, or to the targets in terms of the stop to sales of cars with internal combustion engines by 2035, a deadline which could be postponed. We are also seeing a generally reinvigorated push towards renewables. And I hope that this impulse can take the form of concrete collaborations between Italy and Thailand. So in conclusion, let me mention that here at the Italian Embassy in Bangkok and at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in Rome, we stand ready to support any prospect or opportunity arising in this field. So don't hesitate to contact us, use us in this particular respect. I look forward to our discussion and wish everyone a very fruitful webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Galanti. You have raised a lot of interesting insights for the discussion of this webinar, and also to reflect about areas in which we can work for strengthening the collaboration between Italy and Thailand. So thank you very much. And unfortunately, the Thai ambassador to Italy has had some impediments, so she's not able to connect this morning, but she sent to us a video that we would like to show you by now. So I asked to my colleagues in IT office if they can put on the video of the ambassador Romani Kanarukan, the Thai ambassador to Italy.
His Excellency Mr. Lorenzo Galanti, Director Jajan Arunrat, Ms. Ariana Landi, the European House Ambrosetti, distinguished participants. It is a pleasure to join this webinar on energy transition and sustainability in Thailand, opportunities for Italian companies today. First of all, I would like to thank BOI Paris office for this initiative and the European House Ambrosetti for arranging this webinar. The topics of discussion on the outlook of energy transition in Thailand and investment opportunities in green energy sector are very relevant to common interests and challenges Thailand shares with Italy, from rising threats posed by climate change on a global scale, amidst rising sustainability concerns. Most countries worldwide have started their energy transition to mitigate global warming. Thailand has also implemented comprehensive policies and measures to achieve energy sustainability and ensure energy security in concomitant with efforts to address climate change. In this connection, Thailand aims to increase the renewable share to 30% of total energy consumption by 2037 and to achieve carbon neutrality and net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. and 2065, respectively. To achieve the sustainable low-carbon society and economy, Thailand is drafting a new framework of the National Energy Plan that will step up Thailand's ambition towards carbon neutrality by 2065 to 2070, increasing a proportion of clean energy to no less than 50% of the new electricity generation. Thailand is also working on a long-term strategic plan for a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, driving the energy sector towards the direction of 4D, 1E, which consists of decarbonization, digitalization, decentralization, deregulation, and lastly, electrification. Under this National Energy Plan, the target has also been set to increase energy efficiency to more than 30% by new technology and innovation. Biocircular green economy model is adopted as one of the approaches to achieve Thailand's carbon neutrality goal by promoting the production and the use of low carbon energy in related economic activities. For example, as the top automobile assembling hub in Southeast Asia, Thailand has moved towards the electrification of its automobile industry. The so-called 30 at 30 policy, of which 30% of the total domestic automobile production must be electric vehicle by 2030, is introduced to drive Thailand towards the goal. The Thai government is promoting an investment in the Eastern Economic Corridor, or EEC, with special incentives. The EEC's decarbonization focus area can be classified into two categories, namely sustainable mobility on the next generation automotive and sustainable aviation, and secondly, green circular on energy business, energy efficiency management, and recycling remanufacturing business. In this regard, I would like to invite Italian investors to explore the investment opportunities in EEC in these areas. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, Thailand and Italy share common interests in promoting sustainable development. As I mentioned earlier, the Thai government has promoted the bio-circular green economy model as our post-pandemic recovery strategy. In this regard, Thailand, as the ASEAN coordinator on sustainable development cooperation, wishes to work closely with Italy's initiative on ASEAN-Italy development partnership in relevant areas of the BCG model, particularly on renewable energy, waste reduction, low carbon development, and green industry through knowledge sharing and best practices. In this regard, I wish to inform that the second meeting of the ASEAN-Italy Development Partnership on 10 June this year has already adopted Practical Cooperation Areas 2022 to 2026, which set out priorities area for ASEAN-Italy engagement to enhance our development partnership in practical areas, where ASEAN and Italy have expertise and mutual interests. In the area of energy, PCA indicate opportunities for capacity building in the area of energy security, safe and sustainable development of renewable and alternative energy sources and technologies, power grid integration, as well as promotion of energy efficiencies and conservation practices. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the transition towards decarbonized societies will result from fruitful collaborations among countries across the globe. In line with the Paris Agreement, Thailand has committed to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and net zero carbon emissions by 2065. Thailand is also an active member of the International Renewable Energy Agency, or IRENA. At the last assembly in January last year, Thailand confirmed its commitment in working closely with this organization, specifically on RE-related workshops and activities in the region. I would like to point out that energy cooperation is another important area that Thailand and Italy should work together to explore opportunities for experience, knowledge sharing, and capacity building to support each other in sustainable energy development and energy transition toward decarbonization. In this regard, the Royal Thai Embassy in Rome stands ready to facilitate future contacts between our authorities and interested parties from Italy. May I take this opportunity to wish the webinar every success. I thank you very much. Grazie mille.
Okay, thank you to my colleagues for the support, and I think we can move on to our webinar. And I would like to introduce Mr. Masatoshi Sujura, which is going to present us the outlook of energy transition in Southeast Asia and Thailand. Mr. Sujura is head of division Asia Pacific and partnership of the International Energy Agency EAL. So he is going to provide us with an outlook and scenarios about these important topics. So Mr. Sujura, you can show you up and upload your presentation. Okay, I can see your screen. But I cannot hear you. Can you listen to us, or maybe try to fix your technical problem? So I think that maybe we can go on with the next speaker, and in the meantime, I ask also to my colleague if he can help you to fix your problem, because we cannot hear you and see you, so we just see your screen. So I leave the floor to Kun Veerapat, which is Deputy Director General, Energy Policy and Planning Office of Ministry of Energy of Thailand. He is going to provide us an outlook about the Thailand strategic planning for energy transition and sustainability. So please, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
All right, very good morning. His Excellency Lorenzo Galanti, Kun Janarun Rat, Director of Thailand Board of Investment Paris Office, and distinguished guests Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for give me an opportunity to talk about what the Thai government is going to do in the energy sector to meet the carbon neutrality target that we have pledged in the COP26. And I will start my slides with the key driver that have impact us in terms of the policy, because you can see that if we don't do anything, on no policy, the temperature will increase by 4 to 5 degrees Celsius in 21st century. But if you take a look at the current policies around the world, you can see that it may reduce the temperature, the growth of temperature to 2.8 to 3.2 Celsius. But some countries already pledged and set the target, but it's not enough. It's still the temperature is still growing at around 2.5 to 2.8 degrees Celsius. But the target of us that we are talking about today, starting from COP21 and there's COP26, is meant that we are going to talk about the 2 degree Celsius pathway and 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway that now I think many European countries are already moving toward to the 1.5 degrees Celsius pathway. For the key driver in global energy direction, as I mentioned, that you can see that many countries already pledged a target, and some countries already achieved it, but some countries already set in 2035, 2040, 2045, and most countries just set the target of net zero emission in 2050 and in China 2060. Another key driver that drives the energy sector to move toward the transition is because of the cost of the PV, solar panel, cost of the onshore and offshore wind, and also the battery storage is decreasing, and it decreased a lot in the last 10 years. You can see that due to the cost that reduced that much, it means that it can compete with the fossil fuel. Now you can see that the solar can compete with fossil fuel in terms of natural gas combined cycle. In Thailand itself, the cost of combined cycle now is around almost 2 baht per unit for the combined cycle power plant, but the solar cost is around 1.5 to 1.6 baht per unit. Now it's cheaper than the combined cycle gas. This kind of key driver that in terms of the disruption in energy sector and the clean energy transition, we have to adapt the energy policy to accommodate this change. And as you may have heard from the Kun Romani, that we have in Thailand, we have the National Energy Plan. Actually, we have proposed a National Energy Plan, just the first draft National Energy Plan to the National Energy Policy Council that chaired by the Prime Minister last year. But at that time, we set the carbon neutrality target at 2065 to 2070. But after the COP26, that our Prime Minister had pledged that we are going to meet the carbon neutrality at 2050, which means that we are now in the process of revising our national energy plan at the moment. And for the timeline of the national energy plan, we think that we're going to finish by the end of this year. What inside the national energy plan? To meet the carbon neutrality, this slide will still show 2065 to 2070, but now we are now thinking about 2050. We have seen that to meet that, the renewable energy in the power sector for the new generation that is to come in the next until 2050, renewable should be not less than 50% for the new generation that's going to come in the power sector. And now when we have set the target 15 years earlier for the carbon neutrality. That we are now revising that is maybe more than 60% at the moment that have to come with the energy storage system as well. Another thing is the EV 30 and 30 target that you already heard that we are set that in 2030 the total production of passenger car 30% have to be EV. But in terms of meeting that kind of target, we have to do many things to make it meet the target. We have several things we have to think about because we are the half of the ICE vehicles. What we are going to transform from ICE to EV. That the thing that we are going to think about the industry as a whole. The impact of EV that is going to come, the impact on the oil sector because we have some very 5 to 6 big refinery in Thailand. What will have an impact on them, and also all the measures that we are going to try to promote the use of EV. That under the national EV policy committee. Another thing that help us to meet the carbon neutrality at 2050 is the energy efficiencies. At that time, we think that the energy efficiency, the energy intensity in Thailand have to be we have to improve the energy intensity by 30%, more than 30%, just to meet the carbon neutrality target. But at this time now, we are now going to just revising it, and we think that in 2037, the energy intensity will have to be around 40% better, and also in 2040 it's going to be more than 40%. The last one is the 41. You already heard from Ambassador Romani as well that we are going to do 41E in the energy sector, that including the decarbonization, digitalization, deregulation, decarbonization, and also electrification. That the thing that is we are going to do under the National Energy Plan. The benefit for adapting the energy plan to low carbon economy, definitely it creates economic value. It will investment in underperforming asset. It's increasing competitiveness for Thai entrepreneurs. It's increasing investment and employment in national economy. It reduces PM 2.5 at the moment, and also it's help us recover from economy after the COVID-19 crisis. And under the National Energy Plan, actually we do have the 5 long-term plan. The first one is the power development plan. It's about the power sectors. Another thing is an alternative energy development plan. It's about renewable energy. The third one is the energy efficiency plan, and the oil plan, and the gas plan. Those 5 plans under the National Energy Plan is a 20 years plan. It will end at 2037. We are now revising these 5 plans as well because of them. Now we have an umbrella that we have to meet the target of carbon neutrality 2050 and net zero emission in 2065. These 5 plans we are now revising as well, and we think that we are going to finish it by September of this year for the new plan. And I think that in terms of power development plan itself, we are going to take into account what I just mentioned earlier, that the renewable energy, that we have to be more than 50% or 60% in the power sector, and also the 40% of energy efficiency have to be put in the energy efficiency plan. Another thing is we are now working on it is the Thailand Smart Grid Development Plans. This is also the 20 years plan as well, because of we have seen that the change of the technology, the change of the industry structure, because of when renewable energy is coming, the industry in structure will change from centralized to decentralized. You can see that lots of small power plant is coming, particularly the solar and wind, and particularly the solar, because at the moment we have some solar rooftop that can produce and use by themselves, and they have excess capacity and they can sell to the grid. The government give them the money if they have excess capacity for the solar rooftop. For example, the structure exchange, we just don't need to purchase the power from the power plant. We can produce and sell as well by ourselves. That's the change of the behavior of the customer. So we did have the smart grid development plan, because just to ensure that the system, the infrastructure, and the grid is good enough to support this kind of things. Under the smart grid management, we have 4 stages: the preparation stage and the short-term stage is already done. In the short-term stage that done last year, we have done 3 things. That is, the first one is the demand response and energy management system to help reduce the peak load. In the short term, we do the pilot project and we prepare the system for the demand response and energy management system to help reduce peak load by 350 megawatt. That's the one that we have done. Another thing is the RE forecasting system. Now, the Ministry of Energy and the ECAT has already worked together to set the RE forecast center just to be able to operate the RE forecast system because of renewable energy that's going to come, particularly the solar. And I think that in the 50% of renewable energy, I think more than 80% will be solar in Thailand. And another thing is the microgrid energy storage. We have done the pilot project about 3 to 5 locations that in the short term. But starting from this year, we are now coming to the medium-term action plan, the smart grid development. We have the umbrella of the Paris Agreement. We have the umbrella of the energy plan, and we have the new economic paradigm that is coming. So the smart grid action plan in the medium term, we have to think about when the renewable is coming into the grid system. You can see from this slide that if the renewable energy that's coming in the grid system is less than 15%, we don't need to invest anything in the grid system. We're just mobilizing the existing power system flexibility that is enough to manage that kind of thing. But if we target the variable renewable energy at 10 to 45%, it means that we have to think about that investment for the flexibility needed in the grid system. And if the VRE is more than 40%, the investment and all sort of flexibility needs we have to think about it. That's the one that we have to take into account into the plan. We call it the smart grid action plan in the medium term. In the medium term, from 3 we extend to 5 pillars. The demand response and energy management system will become the major pillar. RE forecast will become the major pillar. Microgrids and prosumer, and we have the energy storage system and also the EV integration. The EV integration is not the target of it's not the 30 and 30. EV integration is about the infrastructure that is going to support the increase of EV, and also we think about the EV not only to charge the power from the system. We think about the EV to be the power source as well, because they have the battery. We think about the model of V2G, that is the vehicle to grid, which means that in the next 10 years we think that the vehicle EV can become the sort of supply of power that can sell to the grid when we need. And we think about the new business, for example, the EV load aggregator that will aggregate the load, the capacity of EV that can sell that capacity to the grid. That under the medium-term action plan. Yes, as you can see that the demand response image, we think about to promote the use of semi-auto and auto demand response. We are going to set the demand response market in the next 10 years. Also, the eye forecast, we are going to gather all the data from all the renewable power plants, SPP and VSPP, and we are come to set the center. The microgrid and prosumer, now yes, we are going to promote the microgrid and prosumer. Like the solar rooftop is one of the prosumer that we have at the moment, and the microgrid we have the pipeline project of 3 to 5 locations, but in the future that we have the policy just to have the community power plants in various area in Thailand. We think about the microgrid system that in that area they can have the power plant that can provide the power to use in the area themselves by not connect to the grid. Another thing is the energy storage system that we are going to think about to act as an ancillary services to the grid system and EV integration that I already mentioned. So for the benefit of the market, it helps resilient energy system. It helps reduce carbon in the industries, and it also helps us access to the modern energy and the affordability of electricity for residents. This is the benefit of this market that we have done, and the medium-term policy approved by the National Energy Policy Council, chaired by the Prime Minister. That the very overview policy that we have done at the moment, and I think that for the long-term master plan, the National Energy Plan, and also the 5 long-term plan, I think that it will be in the next 2 or 3 months. You can see the graph of that, and you can plan what you are going to do in Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kun Virapat, for sharing with us the timeline and the strategic plan of Thailand. It's interesting how the long-term goals are very common in Italy, in Europe, and in Thailand. So also the implication for decarbonization technology, first of all, the smart grid. So I think that this presentation can provide very interesting thoughts to the participants of this webinar. Now I would like to try to Mr. Sujura. I don't know if we can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now perfectly.
Okay, so thank you very much, and sorry about the technical problem. So I will share the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Buongiorno and Swati Tambai. Good morning. So thank you very much for inviting me to this excellent and timely webinar. The IEA works very closely with both countries, with Italy, including last year's G20, as Ambassador Galanti mentioned, and also with Thailand as our association partner, both bilaterally and in the regional context. In fact, our executive director, Dr. Fatih Birol, had an online meeting with Thailand's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Energy, Mr. Spatanapon Pumechao, last Friday, just 1 week ago. And they discussed Thailand IEA cooperation, current energy market challenges, and signed a joint work program for next 2 years. It is also my personal pleasure to speak to Italians and Thais because I have friends in both countries and love your food and know Japanese ambassadors to Rome and Bangkok very well. And let me go straight to the presentation without wasting time because I'm a bit late for technical issues. And I'm presenting our latest.
I'm sorry, we cannot see your presentation. If you can upload it.
Can you see?
No.
Oh, really? Okay. So I will try again.
Otherwise, we can upload it for you. Okay, now it's fine. Now it's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so I will go from the beginning. Okay, can you see that?
Now, yes, thank you.
Okay, then moving on, it's about Southeast Asia outlook, which we released just last month. And then this is based on our 10-year relationship with ASEAN, including Thailand. And the fifth edition of this kind, we are publishing every 2 years. So then it means almost 10 years now from the first edition. And then we found that we also incorporated the latest development that the high and volatile fuel prices are a major challenge for Southeast Asia and Thailand, as for many parts of the world. And then they remind us why we need to invest in cleaner, more efficient technologies. But they also hit vulnerable sectors of the population. So we have to take into account those access and affordability issues as well. On top of that, many countries in the region announced ambitions, like the ambassador, Her Excellency Ambassador meets the Kanak mentioned, then in case of Thailand. So this is extremely important aspect of energy landscape for this region for next 10 years or maybe 30 years. The ambition is clear, but the question is, are the policies in place to get us there? This is the key questions which we investigate in our new outlook. So we have two scenarios. And the first is based on a detailed reading of today's policy landscape by governments and other industry and other stakeholders. And it is called the stated policy scenario steps. And the other one, second one, is a sustainable development scenario, which reflects the region's new climate policy ambitions, including Thailand's one. And then many countries in the region, not limited to Thailand, expressed a kind of very ambitious plans to achieve carbon neutrality and emission reduction. So then this is also compatible with the Paris Agreement. So then we presented two scenarios for your consideration and for your reference. There is still a large gap between a trajectory based on today's policy landscape steps, stated policy scenario, and sustainable development scenario. And what will be required in order to get us to a more secure and sustainable future is written in sustainable development scenario. So we can fill this gap by policy choices. So just go back a bit on historic background of us as a region, including Thailand. Then energy demand, as you see, has been doubled over the 2 decades. Then there are significant country variations, as you see. Indonesia, biggest country in the region, of course, is the biggest, but followed by Thailand as the second biggest energy user and the supplier in the region. And then however, as you see, the overall more than 90% of the goals has been met by fossil fuels. Thailand and Philippines accounted for 40% of total oil imports to the region in 2020. So large increases in electricity demand with big increase in coal, it's also observed. Large rise in industrial demand, ranging from big energy intensive sectors that use a lot of coal to lighter industrial sectors that use more electricity or gas. So overall energy, different types of energy, we witness the growth. Also, big rise in transport consumption and the number of cars and trucks on the road quadrupled over the 2 decades. The region is not yet reached a turning point. Typically looking to the power sector for the signs of change, but for every dollar invest in renewable power in Southeast Asia in recent years, we also see another was invested in unabated fossil fuel generation. So that's why 1-to-1 ratio over 2 decades of investment. Moving on to future projections. In our stated policy scenario, we see more continuity than change. Fossil fuels, oil, natural gas, coal, they account for 3/4 of the total energy demand growth to 2030. Lower than the level seen in recent decades, but still a big increase. Because renewable grow strongly, but still fossil fuels are have high shares. In the sustainable development scenario, then this picture will need to change quite dramatically, as you've seen on the screen. And the share of the sales of electric cars, I think both ambassadors mentioned about electric vehicles, then begin to outpace the sales of conventional cars from around 2030. And the share of electric cars in the total stock reaches 75% by 2050 in this sustainable development scenario with green lines. Energy efficiency also mentioned earlier. In other words, energy intensity falls by 2.6% annually on average to 2050, which is 50% greater than the previous decade. So we need to intensify our efforts on energy efficiency as well. And energy services provided by unabated coal need to be met in other ways, including not only power, but also industrial outputs like cement, iron, steel. This means a rapid scaling up of renewables, of course, as you see, but also a lot of other alternative technologies, including demand-side measures and efforts to curb emissions via CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, storage, and co-firing with ammonia. Risks from Southeast Asia's high reliance on fossil fuels have been exposed by the current crisis, as you see today, and today's policy settings don't fully address these vulnerabilities. As you can see on the screen, the region's net oil import requirement is only set to grow oil, as domestic production does not keep pace with rising demand. Also, region has been traditionally exporting region of natural gas, but then it becomes a net importer of gas quite soon. Accelerating clean energy transition is a key way to reduce these energy security vulnerabilities, importing a lot of oil and gas, and to protect consumers from the risks of price spikes and any disruptions of supplies. In the sustainable development scenario, by mid-century, oil and gas imports are almost half of the steps. So this is stated policy scenario, so the current projection, but it could be halved by sustainable development scenario. Moving on to emissions, then the issue of environment and air quality could exacerbate the risks that Southeast Asia is already facing in the changing climate, the natural disasters, etc. And the stated policy scenario, the current projection, is associated with 30% increase in CO2 emissions for the region by 2030, 30% up, then another 30% to 2050. So there are also continued problems with air pollution. One of the key reasons for this is continued reliance in some countries on solid biomass for cooking. So clean cooking is also very important for the people in the region. Even though this problem has been much progressed or addressed in the region as a whole, in particular in Thailand, this is still a big issue in Myanmar and Cambodia. In addition, there are wider risks at the time of high fuel prices if you import oil and gas and at high price. And then in that case, even more people will be pushed back to traditional polluting biomass or biofuels for their cooking. So while the region is making great progress on universal access to electricity, there are still big uncertainties on access to affordable and clean cooking fuels. Moving on to power. Our new outlook has 4 deep dive sections, and the first is on power. Power sector has been also mentioned earlier. And then in any scenario, both scenarios, for the future, Southeast Asia uses a lot of electricity. And particularly in sustainable development scenario, the growing electricity demand is met by renewable power, notably wind and solar. As we are all aware, a rising share of wind and solar and the intermittency of these sources greatly increases the need for flexibility in other parts of the system because of the seasonal the intermittency or daily intermittency we have from solar and power. So in the past, and also in the new outlook, we've highlighted different aspects of this, notably the importance of well-integrated regional power grid. This time, we focus on another aspect, the possibilities for existing coal and gas-fired plants to change their roles. Today, these plants are the main sources of generation, but during the transition, they could be a very cost-effective source of flexibility by adjusting their output easily compared with the renewable energies. However, existing contractual arrangements are a barrier to this change of roles of current fossil fuel-based power generation. Many of because many of the existing power purchasing power agreements (PPAs) specify a minimum daily load for these plants. Take-or-pay fuel contracts are also common for power plants. In Thailand, where we see progress on policy and regulation, but the minimum take capacity in all contracts decreases by only 10% to 2030 in current projection. Without changes to these structures, it will not be easy to repurpose existing assets based on fossil fuel to offer flexibility in our stated policy, the sustainable development scenario. Low emission fuels, second the topic we focused. Then the clean electricity is vital to transitions, but it cannot provide everything. There is a window in many countries for gas to play a bigger role in transitions, especially where gas displaces more polluting fuels. But of course, today's price environment makes that more difficult. So we also zoom in other possibilities such as modern biofuels, hydrogen, ammonia, and synthetic fuels. Southeast Asia has a large biofuels sector already, and this brings the debates about the trade-offs, biodiversity and food, particularly at the time of high food prices. In our analysis, we wanted to highlight the importance of sustainable feedstocks, such as agricultural residues or waste that can be used for energy with minimal adverse effects on food industry and food provision. We also highlight the longer-term potential for hydrogen and hydrogen-rich fuels, including the possibility to co-fire existing thermal power plants with ammonia. We also encourage to see the region's CO2 storage potential. There are already at least 7 large-scale CCUS, carbon capture utilization storage projects in the region, including in Thailand. And Thailand is piloting green hydrogen and fuel cell systems for power provision, and has plans to conduct feasibility studies for ammonia co-firing. Next topic, third topic is investment. Investment is a key. I think it's also a topic today. To make the changes happen. You can see on the screen the size of this challenge. Even in the stated policy scenario, current track, overall energy investment needs to double by 2030. In the sustainable development scenario, it needs to be tripled. In our analysis, as you see, this is the current the historic average, and this is stated policy scenario. This is sustainable development scenario, so double or tripled. In our analysis, we highlighted a few important points. Wind and solar have experienced a major cost reduction over the last decade globally. However, costs remain relatively high in Southeast Asia, mainly due to unclear and uncertain policies in some countries, which have hampered long-term predictability for investors. Around half of the energy investment in Southeast Asia in recent years came from public sources of finance, but we will need a lot more private finance to achieve double or triple investment. And in particular in renewables, renewable scale-ups. So then private sector finance was indeed crucial to rapid rollout of renewable projects in Thailand and Vietnam in recent years. We estimate in sustainable development scenario, around 70% of investment in Southeast Asia need to come from the private sector. Currently, as I said, it's 50-50, but it should be increased up to 70%. Then also the financial stability of players remain a large issue for investment. The economic consequences of the pandemic have worsened the situation. So power utilities were affected by reduced payment capability by consumers as they are facing financial problems. Lastly, there's a big role for international development finance, which catalyzes private investment, which is needed to be increased, especially for new technology development and some the risky projects at the experimental stage. The last but not least, I wanted to focus on Southeast Asia's potential as a supplier of critical minerals or supply chains related to clean energy transitions. Already today, Malaysia and Vietnam are the world's second and third largest manufacturers of solar PV modules. And as mentioned earlier, Thailand is the 11th largest vehicle manufacturer in the world and could also become a key hub for manufacturing electric vehicles. And you have other countries like Indonesia, Philippines have rich nickel nickel reserves, and then which is very important for batteries. And this could be a major source of revenue for the region if you establish a good supply chains from the mining to production of PV and EVs. Then but at the same time, there are some warning signs. Investment in mineral exploration in the region has declined in recent years, and the region's share of global mineral exploration budget has halved since 2012. These trends need to reverse if South Asia is to realize its potential in this growing sector. We also highlight the sustainable development of mining activities, including close attention to ESG requirements that are becoming increasingly important for buyers around the world. So the investing in the critical minerals, also PVs, EV productions in the region could be benefit the Thailand as the manufacturer of EVs. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And I wish you the great success of this webinar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sujura. It's very you provide us a very interesting presentation that also shows us the huge investment amount that are needed in the Southeast Asia region, and so it requires also the collaboration between companies from Asia and also from Europe. So thank you very much. So now I leave the floor to Kun Suvida, which is Senior Investment Promotion Officer of the Thailand Board of Investment. I just want to ask you if you can stay in 10 minutes for your speech so that we can finish the webinar on time. Please, the floor is yours.
You hear me right?
Yeah, very well.
Okay, great. I will share my presentation. Okay. Good morning. I'm Suvida from BOI. BOI is a government agency that promotes investment in Thailand in a direction corresponding to the National Development policy. And energy security is an important objective of Thailand energy policy that our government has to cope with increasing power demand and we set the target to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050 and net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2065. And last year, Thailand National Energy Policy Council has set the energy policy direction by increasing the target of electricity production from renewable energy to 50% of the total energy. And lately in May, the National Energy Policy Council has approved a plan to increase the targets of electricity production from clean energy to almost 10 gigawatts in 10 years, starting from 2021. This means that investors can sell electricity from clean energy to the EGAT, or Electricity Generating Authority of Thailand. And if the company are qualified by Ministry of Energy, and BOI also support this project if the seller are juristic person as company, a foundation, or cooperative. We grant you incentive also. And in the past 5 years, Thailand has averaged daily solar radiation intensity as 17.6 megajoules per square meter. The highest solar radiation rate is in the central Thailand, and the next one is the northeastern part of Thailand. And this is a map of Southeast Asia region that solar radiation irradiance in this region this week is very high. Pink color indicates the area of solar radiation as 1,000 watts per square meter. And Thailand is a country of agriculture. We have abundant resources from for renewable energy, and these are agricultural byproducts or waste that we like to promote, because the Energy Research Bureau from Ministry of Energy has a research to prove that there are numerous unused in these agricultural waste, especially rice husk and rice straw in the lower northern part of Thailand. Thai government has encouraged to stimulate investors to utilize them in any other industries or use them as fuel for renewable for electricity generation. So because it will help reducing PM 2.5 air pollution problem in Thailand, because in every year after cropping season, these wastes are always burned and causing air pollution problem. So BOI will help investor in energy sector. BOI can grant you tax and non-tax incentive. Furthermore, we operate OS Investment Center is a one-stop service center for investors, both BOI and non-BOI. And there are many other agencies represented at OS Center, and BOI can connect you, the investors, to other agencies as well. And nowadays, BOI have online clinic that to serve your inquiries about getting promoted from BOI. You can book online. You can book today. You can have meeting tomorrow for sure. We have BOI staff available for you for all sectors, actually, from Monday to Friday. And one-stop service center for visa and work permit is actually in the same floor at OS Investment Center at Jamjuri Square building. Over there, BOI staff works together with officers from Ministry of Labor and Immigration Center to facilitate you for visa and work permits. And if you have decided to invest in Thailand, you can submit application for promotion online through our e-investment system. And BOI have 8 sections of activities eligible for promotion and production of electricity activities under Section 7, which is service and public utilities. BOI categorized eligible activities into 3 groups, Section 8, Group A, and Group B. For Section 8 is special group of activities related to technology and innovation development. But most of activities are in Group A and B. And for Group A, you will get corporate income tax exemption. But in Group B, you will get only tax incentive on machinery and raw material and non-tax incentive. For activities in electricity production, they are in under Group A1, A2, and A4. Level of incentive depend on sources of fuel. Maximum benefit will be given to production electricity from garbage or RDF. Your company will receive 8 years corporate income tax exemption for revenue from sales of electricity, and there is no ceiling for exemption for this activity. For production of electricity from renewable energy, such as solar, biogas, biomass, you will receive 8 years corporate income tax exemption, but according to the capital investment, excluding cost of land and working capital. For production of electricity from other energy sources, we promote only cogeneration and using clean coal technology. If your project locate in our targeted areas, you will get more benefits. And our targeted areas are special economic zone is in 10 provinces, 10 border provinces in Thailand, and 20 provinces with lowest per capita income, border provinces in southern Thailand, and Eastern Economic Corridor. And if you locate in border provinces in southern Thailand, you will get maximum benefit because your group will change to A1 plus 50% reduction of corporate income tax rate for 5 years. I have summarized conditions and criteria for project approval. First, the minimum investment requirement of each project must be not less than 1 million baht, excluding cost of land and working capital. The main point is that you must own the machineries in the project, but you can outsource other company for installation. That's okay. And for financial credibility, we check your debt to equity ratio. For newly established company, must not exceed 3:1. And I suggest you to use new machineries in the electricity generation project. And you have to submit power purchase agreement along with BOI application. And if you are promoted by BOI for electricity production, no foreign equity restrictions. And these BOI also promote other activities related to energy transition, both fuel or battery, and also we especially now focus on the policy 30 at 30 that His Excellency also mentioned that that is 30% of the car production in Thailand must be zero emission vehicle by 2030. And then BOI released many measures to promote this policy as well, together with promote this activities also. And my last slide, please focus on promoting sustainability and decarbonization. If you have subsidiaries in Thailand already, they may be able to join this scheme. This scheme focuses on companies who are currently non-BOI but engaged in business in BOI activity list, and also companies who get promoted but their corporate income tax exemption are already expired. If they use renewable energy or reduce their energy consumption, they will receive 8-year corporate income tax exemption for the revenue of their existing project, but not more than 50% of their investment cost of enhancements. Okay, we have OS Investment Center and BOI Online Clinic waiting for you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Kun Subida, for your presentation and for presenting to Italian companies that are attending the webinar which kind of support the BOI can offer to them. It is very, very important. Now I want to leave the floor to Mr. Alessandro Menocci, CEO of Danieli Thailand. He is going to present us the success story of an Italian company that is doing business in Thailand. So please, Mr. Menocci, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Excellencies, speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Danieli is one of the largest worldwide provider of turnkey plants for the steel industries. We provide turnkey plants that cover the full range of product, from iron ore to every different kind of finished product. Basically, we design and we provide our plants, erection and commissioning to our customer. In our factories, we manufacture what we call the noble machines, which mean the core technological machines. Group revenues in the last 3-4 years between 2.7 and 3 billion euro per year, and location of main manufacturing center are headquartered in Italy, Butrio, Udine province in the northeast. Then we have the largest factory outside Italy in Asia, Thailand and China. The third one in India, and then we have service center in the United States, full presence in Europe and the Middle East. So let's come to Danieli Thailand. First of all, one specification: while China and India have a purpose, have been set and are developing the local market and focusing the local market, Danieli in Thailand has a different mission since the beginning and a different target. So we start as a factory of Danieli in Asia. We share since the beginning all the customers worldwide, and we've been later on, a few years after 2006, assigned to follow directly all the Southeast Asia market. So we are in an area of 450,000 square meters and 90,000 square meters of covered workshop. We employ today 1,500 employees, mainly manufacturing, 600 people, 200 engineers, 200 overhead between HR, finance, procurement, IT, and so on, and around more than 400 outsource companies who work for us in full outsource activities. Why we choose Thailand? First of all, Danieli has a long history with Thai people, and it was quite natural. We employ Thai welders in our construction company. So wherever we go on site to our customer to do the erection and the assembly of our plants, we employ since long time very skilled Thai welders. So we are very familiar with the country, with the skills. On top of this, the industrial area where we are now, the Eastern Seaboard Industrial Estate, is one of the main industrial areas of Thailand. It's called also the Detroit of the East, because it's been set up originally as an automotive district. There are the major OEM, all the supply chain of the automotive, but later on has been fulfilled and increase in dimension in number of companies. There are thousands of companies. There is electronic manufacturing, food and beverage, every kind of business, not only machinery, not only automotive. Of course, the support of the Thai government and the BOI, you just listen to the presentation of Consuida, and those are some interesting starting point to set up an activities, permanent activities in this country. In the beginning, you can benefit from privilege of BOI, and also a strategic location in Asia because is center or anyway very convenient for commuting and move around Asia, also for supply as well. So as we said, since the beginning, we start with produce the same machines of headquarters. So the main purpose was to set up the team, to set up all the force and develop the technological skills of our product to keep the same level of quality. And of course, main target was competitiveness, being in Asia and benefit from the supply chain in Asia, in China, but not only. In the very beginning in China, because we have an hub in China, like many other foreign companies, and later on we localize our supply chain locally in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Korea. We will see later on during this presentation. So we have today the full team here in Thailand to manage the contract in Southeast Asia, as I said before, from engineering, manufacturing, project management, commissioning, and sales and service. The process of our production starting fabrication, and it was the easy step, is very easy to find the skilled welders, yes, as I said. Second part of our process is machining workshop. It is the big investment of Danieli we have made here in Thailand, and we have more than 45 CNC machines, lathes, vertical lathes, CNC lathes, an extensive capability of big boring machines, and dedicated work centers. Our machines have a medium and big dimension, so we need big boring machines, we need space to do this. We have a mechanical assembly, electrical assembly, and hydraulic assembly. These are some examples of the technological machines of our plants. Coming to design office, after 2 years of the setup, so in 2008, we had the challenge to recruit 400 engineers, like immediately. And so this was an interesting example because even though we are in a very wide and full of company manufacturing area, once you need 400 engineers, it's not wise to go to hijack from neighbors and so on. And so we were, let's say, the only way that we find, and it was actually a winning way, was to go to set up a project with local technical school, university, King Mongkut University of Technology. And with them, we develop career path program for the students, for the undergraduating engineers who can come in our company, have a training period, come back in university, graduate, and then set up career path was already prepared for them inside our design office. We also set up our own training center. We were talking about a big number, of course. If the number were smaller, we didn't have to go through this project and challenge, but we set up our own training center where the new engineers who join Danieli go through a training path of 2 months in which you learn every basic, the basic of Danieli design, of our system, of how to work inside our office, so that at the end of these 2 months, once he was start to work in the destination office, he was able to work with profitability directly on the projects. One of the key of our competitiveness being here in Thailand was what we call specialization, and we find this way ourselves through some standardization of some of our machines, even though Danieli is very, very tailor-made and we follow the design of the customer, but we find some business unit who accept the challenge with us, and we succeed in standardizing part of their machines so that we can reduce the huge mix of product and focus on some core technological machines, but being competitive and benefit from the Asian supply chain and from standardization, we were able to produce all those machines in all the projects of Danieli. Cranes here were one example. Hydraulics is one other example. For example, all the hydraulics for all the projects of Danieli worldwide are produced here in Thailand, are 100% designed, produced, and tested here, and then shipped everywhere in the world. Another classical, typical example is stands for a rolling mill who produce a long product, a rebar for construction, typically. And through optimization of the supply chain, localization of supply chain, sharing volume, standardization of the product, we achieve a 35% of product reduction, a huge reduction of lead time, and also through the standardization of the process, a 20% of the indirect cost reductions. So, I reached the end. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish you a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manoj, and congratulations for your activities and vision that you are carrying out in Thailand. It's a very inspiring case of Italian company that has successfully invested in this country. So we arrive at the end of this webinar at the 11:02 minutes. So I think I have to say to everybody goodbye, and thanks everybody for joining this webinar. Thanks to all the distinguished speakers and also to the participants that attending these important events. And I wish you everybody a wonderful day or evening if you are in Thailand. Thank you very much.